Hey guys. Alright, we're back with Epic History TV, but still not the Napoleon series because, god damn it, I am an Anglo-Saxon historian, and if they have an Anglo-Saxon video, I'm gonna fucking watch it. I'm sorry, but not really. This is that bonus Vikings interview, Ragnars Death song, Werebears, and Did Vikings Really Believe in Valhalla, where they do some more interviewing with Professor Tom Shippey. Who is also a Tolkien scholar. I think the lead Tolkien scholar in the world. I think. I could be wrong though. I just know he's in the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings appendices interviews and stuff. They have him there a lot. So, anyways, let's go ahead and I guess I'm really curious the most about Valhalla because I think, as I said in the original video to this, I have some questions on just how popular Valhalla was because of just the idea of, was it really as big of a thing in their society as we think it is today? Because history, for the most part, for much of human history, has been militarily focused. And when you think of Vikings, you think of the military and therefore their belief in Valhalla, that if they die with a weapon in hand, they go to Valhalla. Well, war does not make up a culture's entirety, right? That's not a culture's entire being is war. Unless it's Sparta, which I guess in a sense, but like for Norse and Danish culture, warfare was not, I don't think was necessarily as big as I think as big as we make it out to be today, or at least pop culture does. Because when the Vikings could, they accepted a Weregeld or Danegeld, depending on, I think it's Danegeld, or was it a Weregeld? Can't remember. I forgot what I was saying before my dogs interrupted me with their barking. But yeah, I personally don't think maybe Valhalla was as big of a thing as we put the emphasis on their culture today. Because I don't think war was certainly common, and certainly in the clan type competition between Norse and Danes that quite possibly existed. I think I explained okay enough. But let's go ahead and hear about Professor Tom Shippey.
The story of Ragnar's death is, of course, told in his own saga, the Saga of Ragnar. But there's also a long poem which is supposed to have been sung by Ragnar from the snake pit. And it's called Kraukumal, the Song of the Crow. And it's a death song, but it's also what they call an ivy singer. It's a song of life in which Ragnar recounts his battles and eventually looks forward to dying and going to feast on the benches of Odin, and of course predicting the revenge which will be taken for him. And the last line of it, which I adopted for my book title, is Hlæjandi skal ik deyja, laughing shall I die. Os munu æsir bjóða, esat sitendi döði, lífs eru líðna stunder, hlæjandi skal ik deyja. The gods will invite me in. In death there is no sighing. The hours of life have passed. Laughing shall I die.
Hrolf's Werebear.
King Hrolf's story, like King Arthur's, ends, of course, with a great battle in which Hrolf is killed by someone who appears to have been his cousin, Hjörvarthr. Well, I said that sagas often have an element of fairy tale, and that's the case with the saga of Rolf Kraki, because his most famous champion is someone called Budvar Bjarki. And Bjarki means little bear. And Bjarki is, in fact, a werebear.
Telling me werebears didn't exist, Professor Shippey? What? No.
In the final battle, he takes bear shape, just like Beorn in Tolkien's The Hobbit, and starts fighting in the front
Of course, he
rank
had to
as a
throw in
bear,
the Tolkien reference.
because he actually has two shapes. He's human and he's bear, and he can project the bear shape. In the saga account, when the final battle takes place, Rolf's men realize that there is a gigantic bear fighting in their front ranks, which is tossing people around and knocking them down and crushing them with bear hugs and all sorts. But Bödvar isn't there. So his friend Hjalti goes back into the hall and says, and finds Bödvar sitting there in the hall on a bench. And he says, you know, come on, Bödvar, you're missing the battle. Bödvar Bjarki, he looks like fairy tale, but just the same, the giant halls at Hlethraborg, they're absolute fact. So once again, we have a mix of fact and fancy in the story, and you just have to try to separate the bits out.
Yeah. Downfall of the Joms Vikings.
The famous thing about them is that they were deluded into getting involved with Norwegian politics, and their downfall was caused by the Viking custom of hatestrenging, in which you have to make a boast, usually when drunk, and when you make the boast, of course, once you're sober, you have to follow it up. And that's what they did. So they sailed off to help the conquest of Norway, and it was their bad luck to run into Jarl Håkon with his supernatural goddess helper, his family goddess helper, Hladagerðr, and also his son, Jarl Eirik, who was the greatest warrior of the Viking Age. So the Jomsvikings were very heavily defeated at the Battle of Hjörungavágr, which took place probably about 986.
Thormod's unfinished poem.
The story of the Battle of Stiklastaðir comes at the end of the saga of Olaf Sigurdsson, which was written by Snorri Sturluson sometime about 1230. The battle, however, took place on 29th July 1030, so we are now well into recorded history times. Thormod the poet survives. Not his fault, he just happens to survive. And at the end...
I love that saying. Not his fault, he just survived.
End of the battle, when it's all over, he laments that he has not been allowed to join his king. And at that moment, an arrow comes flying from nowhere and hits him. Thormod goes off to the dressing station. Very interesting scene in the Viking dressing station, but it's clear that they can't do anything for him. So he starts to compose a final poem, which is about his own wound. And he goes through the poem in a very complex metrical stanza, and he dies on his feet without quite finishing it. The last line is incomplete. Emkak roser en rosum reiser grön kona manni. Jan stender fastet forna fenstigi mer benja. Dat welder mer en myra mar gloza nu troda. Djup och danskra vapna dag shrita spore. I am not red, yet the slim woman has a man unwounded. The ancient iron stands fast in my marsh of wounds. That makes me pale now, wearer of gold wave fire, the deep track at Dagfrid of Danish weapons. Fortunately, standing by is the teenage Harald Hardrada. And Harald was very keen on poetry and very skillful in skaldic meters. And he listens to the poem and he says what he was going to say was, and he finishes the poem for Thormod in exactly the right rhyme and meter. So the poem is finally completed, but Thormod has died standing on his feet. One of the nice things about Harald Hardrada, and in fact I think it's the only nice thing about Harald Hardrada.
What? The only nice thing? Oh boy.
Is that he was a genuine devotee of poetry. His whole saga has accounts of him favoring poets, criticizing poets, making his own poetry up, etc. I have to say also that he was a poetic snob. He very much preferred the difficult meters, which are almost impossible to compose and almost impossible to understand. But just the same, he was a patron of the arts, though You better not get your rhymes and half rhymes mixed up. He didn't like it if people did that.
Oh, here we go, the big question.
Everyone's familiar with the idea of Valhalla and, of course, of the Valkyries. If you are a warrior, like Kirk Douglas in the famous Vikings movie, and you die sword in hand, then your soul will be picked up by the Valkyries, the choosers of the slain, and you'll be taken off to Odin's halls, Valhutl, the halls of the slain, where you will feast and frolic and fight with your companion warriors for the rest of eternity. Well, that's the story, and no doubt some Vikings believed it, and some no doubt did not, because that, I think, is a story particularly associated with the followers of Odin. And of course there were others who were followers of Thor, or of Freyr, or of Heimdall, or of Njörður, or one of the many other gods in the Viking pantheon.
Oh.
So I'm sure there were many different ideas of what happened after you were dead. But that is the prominent one and the familiar one.
That is interesting. Okay. So Valhalla isn't an overarching Norse Scandinavian idea. It's, for them, it was attributed to Odin. Odin alone, it seems. So if you were a follower of Odin, you would go to Valhalla. If you were a follower of Thor, perhaps you went somewhere else, or you believed you went somewhere else. Heimdall, Freya, as he was saying, that is interesting and something I did not know. I did not think of that. That's really cool. That's really cool, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Wow.
And we find it written down by Snorri Sturluson. It's part of his digest, his little handbook of Norse mythology.
Goddamn Epic History TV. I'm super excited for whatever video they do next. I hope it's another like branching out video where I want them to do more of this time period, because then I can better react to it. But not on the Viking side. Go to the Anglo-Saxon side so I can better commentate. Oh, this was good. This was really good. I don't know what else to say, because it's Tom Shippey. I can't disagree with whatever he says. He's one of the lead. He's the lead Tolkien historian, and he's one of the leading historians on this topic, obviously. So yeah, it was a great video. Good job, Epic History TV. So that's gonna be this bonus Vikings interview with Professor Tom Shippey. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and leave a suggestion down below for what you want to see me react to next. And I will see you guys in the next video.